Welcome to Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, the big, butch, manly Canadian pop culture podcast that knows exactly what goes on at those cottages. I'm Andrew Wheeler.
And I'm Shane Hollon.
We are talking today about Canadian sports romance television series Heated Rivalry, created, written and directed by Jacob Tierney for Crave, based on Rachel Reed's Game Changers series of novels, and starring Hudson Williams and Connor Story, whose names should now be ubiquitous in your feed. The novel Heated Rivalry is one of the most popular examples of a thriving male-male hockey romance subgenre, and this TV show is the first time one of these titles has been adapted for the screen. The series debuted November 28th, 2025, and rapidly became a pop culture phenomenon, rocketing its two leads to stardom in 4 weeks, basically, just over 4 weeks. It's been a crazy month for those boys. Years of secret hookups between rival hockey players Shane Hollander and Ilya Rozanov leads to more complicated feelings. But can these closeted pro athletes find their happy ending?
Oh, I sure hope so. Spoiler alert for this entire series.
Yes, thank you. Very important to note. We will be talking about all 6 episodes. I will try to avoid any spoilers from the books, which I have read, but
then
yes,
don't
we'll
watch
keep
your
it kosher.
last solo episode.
Yeah. Well, those have their own spoiler warnings, I expect.
Okay, fair.
So, Shane.
So,
it took you a couple of weeks to get into this show, right? I mean, not to get into it, but to start watching it.
I'm always such a late adopter to things because I've got other stuff going on.
I see.
But I knew I was going to watch it. Obviously, I had to. And I'm glad I got in before the show was wrapped. And my God, I didn't know that this was possible, that I needed this. I don't think anyone knew that this was going to happen, that it was going to blow up like this. And it just makes me proud to be a gay Canadian, you know?
Named Shane Hollon.
Okay, look, so we need to talk about a couple of things. Yes, our names are almost identical. Yes, we're both mixed race, gay bottoms, and Canadian. And I also have a family member named Rachel Reed. And so I really had to I had to dive into who this was just to make sure that my life story wasn't being plagiarized. And I think that's a valid concern at this point.
I think unless you've been keeping secrets from me, I feel like the fictional Shane Holland has led a slightly different life. But if you have been keeping those secrets from me, please stop. I need to know these men.
I have kept some men's secret from you. And look, I didn't even know that male hockey romance novels were a genre. And then obviously I found out about this show through you because you introduced me to everything that's good in my life. Thank you. And then unfolded the most beautiful reflection on what it is to be queer in a masculinity obsessed culture. A love story that had nuanced characters trying to figure out how to be authentic and vulnerable in a world that eschews that behavior in men, and softcore smut that was cinematic and tender and cares about the inner lives of its main characters. Mind blown.
Right? Apparently they said it could never be done because they never tried to do it before this. It's insane. It's insane how good this show is and how unprecedented it is. But now they've set the precedent. I'm ready. I'm ready to see what this new world will bring to us.
Yeah. I just want to give a shout out to Valentina.v on Instagram, and let's please tag her in the notes because she is doing great work in breaking down the technical marvels of this show and how it was made to feel cinematic and intimate and personal and how they did it on a really small budget. And I've just found her posts so illuminating about not just the process, about what makes this show so special. So shout out to Valentina B and go watch all of her Instagram posts and then come back and watch all of our past videos. But it's just such a like this show is a marvel of ingenuity. And it was done in like just over a month, 36 or 37 days, they say,
Yeah.
and a relatively small budget because it's a Canadian show and it's made with taxpayer money. Go us.
Yes.
And it doesn't seem like any of that. It seems big. It feels like a movie. The lighting is fantastic and it feels both natural and supernatural. And the story is written so well that you forget you're watching a TV show. It's just
Yeah.
really, really incredible how it was done on top of what it is doing.
Now, in contrast to you, I did know that this was a genre, that male hockey smut is a whole body of work, but it wasn't something I'd ever looked into until this show was announced, which was earlier this year. It was like the spring of this year that they said they were making this adaptation, that they announced the casting. Like the turnaround on this has been kind of extraordinary. And once I heard about the show, I dived into reading a bunch of hockey smut. Not actually the ones by Rachel Reed initially, because they were not available as audiobooks, which is how I've been reading most of these at the time I started. So I ended up reading a bunch of other hockey smut, and then eventually the Rachel Reed books became available as well. And I've now read all 6 of those in this series, plus she's done a couple of other standalone hockey smut books. So yeah, it's a whole world specifically of fascination with hockey players that I think you can find a bunch of like essays on why this particular sport, why this is so appealing. Partly it's because I think there was a lot of real world, like hot hockey players that women were interested in. But I think also it's just part of that sort of, it's a violent sport and it's a very masculine and rugged sport. And I think the idea of these men being tender and soft and loving, deconstructs something about masculinity that feels very important in this moment. So yeah, there are other sports that have got good smut as well. I think race car driving at the moment seems to be very popular because so many of those race car drivers are like 20 something hot boys now. So yeah,
And a
that
couple
might
of
be
them
the
have
next
come
thing.
out.
Oh, great. So they can just write their own smut. That would be lovely. I will say, as someone who, as myself being a queer writer, I was initially skeptical about male romance from women writers aimed at a female audience, because I mean I've known that it's happening since forever. Like slash fiction goes back to Kirk and Spock, written by women for women. It's not anything new that women love writing gay porn for other women, basically. I've had friends who write it. I've read a bunch of it in the past. But as someone who was looking for opportunities as a writer, I always felt a little bit sidelined by the fact that there didn't seem to be the same space or appetite for men who do love men writing about men who love men. But I'm putting all that behind me, because I think I've come to really appreciate what these stories give the world just through existing. And I think they do create more opportunity for people like me. I think this is a positive work in the world. And if it took a woman to write this story and then for a gay man to adapt it for the screen, that's all to the good that we now have this story. And I hope it means that we will have many more stories like it, and that there will be many more Rachel Reeds, but also many more Jacob Tierney's. Because, yeah, there were no queer stories like this. I will say this multiple times in this episode. There was nothing like this show before this show. I really believe that. And so it's such a transformative moment, potentially. We'll see.
We'll see. Or this will be one of a kind, never to be repeated again. But that's the
Blip.
fatalist in me. Yeah. Well, speaking of women, should we talk about the women?
I suppose we should talk about the women.
Of whom there are 3 or 4. 5?
I would go as high as maybe 5. Yeah, there are 5.
I'm going to talk about 3.
It's not a show that centers women, but it's also not a show that has like a big bench of supporting cast. Like it's very much a series of two-handers between 4 men. You know, Scott and Kip get their episode, but everything else is so strongly tied to the characters of Shane and Ilya. We never leave their presence. So yeah, and that's okay. You can have a story that is about men, especially if it's a story about men loving men. You know, it's pretty integral. There's no female love interest. Well, I guess there is, sort of.
Sort of.
So yeah, this is always going to be a show that doesn't give women and female characters the same level of exposure as it's giving its male characters, or as so many other works have failed to spotlight women. But when a clutch ally is needed in this show, the women show up, you know? The
Yeah.
female characters do some important heavy lifting in this show.
Yeah, it's like you said, women are not what we came here for in this particular series.
This
But
time,
but, but not one of them feels one-dimensional. And I think that is thanks to having a female writer of the novels. I mean, I would hope that she wasn't about to write one-dimensional female characters. We've seen it happen before, but this is someone who cares deeply about the characters that she's creating. It goes to show that even her side pieces have some dimension to them. Speaking of side pieces, absolutely loved Sophie Nélisse in this as the straight shooting beard Rose. We are also going to try and shoehorn in as much hockey terms as we can in this episode. I've already heard bench from you.
we are.
I've heard two-hander from you. So
I didn't
straight
know
shooting.
those were hockey terms.
Well,
I
wow,
don't
this
know
show
any
has
hockey
really
terms, Shane.
osmosed into you.
Oh my God, I'm so panicked now.
Rose is a lot of fun, and she is the woman that we all came out to or wish that we could.
Yeah. 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 Many a gay man has a Rose, and every Rose has at least 7 gay men. So true. So real.
So true, bestie.
And she's not villainized. Like, that's important to say. Like, it's so easy to, like, any of these female characters could be an obstacle. And one of them, I would say, is. Yuna, I think, is an obstacle, but she's not a villain either. We'll get to her in more detail.
I thought you were going to say Svetlana, and not an obstacle in the way that you would think. She is an obstacle that's kind of built out of a character's necessity in a way.
Yeah.
Or he puts her forth as a possible obstacle.
Yes. She's a threat to Shane in the same way that Rose is a threat to Ilya, but never actually directly threatening those characters.
Right.
Or even necessarily knowing of their existence. Well, we know Svetlana knows who Shane is, because she fancies him.
Yeah. Speaking of Svetlana, Ksenia Daniela Kharlamova, stunningly beautiful, does an amazing job of bringing Svetlana to life and making her like empathetic towards Ilya and just being like the shoulder to cry on, but also having a romantic love with him. I feel like this is another role that we don't often see, is a woman in love with a bisexual man who is fine with that. Like it's almost unheard of to have a bisexual character, a bisexual male character who is in love with a man, but who's also in a healthy relationship with a woman. Like it's just we're breaking down barriers all over the place.
Honestly, yeah, the bisexuality is not pathologized. It's not, no one is being judgmental or seeing the bisexuality something to weaponize against someone else. Like the fact that they restate Ilya's bisexuality through even to like the last conversation in the last episode, you know, it's never erased. It's never marginalized. And Svetlana is genuinely someone he loves and has had a sexual relationship with. And yes, that does threaten Shane a little bit, but, you know, just needs to be talked out. That's all.
Beautiful. And Christina Chang, my God, I have loved this woman since she was in 24. And I was shocked to see her in this, still looking as stunningly beautiful as she is. Also, Yuna, fabulous name. Looking at you, Final Fantasy X, one of the great characters. But she gives hockey mom realness. Or like sports mom realness. I vividly recalled my mother screaming at my brother at the soccer pitch. She also delivers the monologue that every gay boy wishes their mother would memorize. In one of the most touching, amazing moments that, and this is no shade to my mother, made me realize that this is a fantasy.
Yes. Yeah. Definitely, it was a conversation that was very aware of the tropes, I suppose, that final conversation. It was doing a lot of work to unpack a lot of damage that a lot of us have suffered over the years. But yes, the moment where Shane says, I tried, I really tried, we know he really tried. You know, he's saying, I tried to not be gay. And we know that's true. He tried to find a relationship with a woman. He found a woman he could even love, but he couldn't be straight. It was not in him to do that. And he tries to apologize to his mum. And that's when she realizes, oh my God, no, I should never have put you in that position. And that was so powerful and so beautifully delivered. And Yuna is presented as sort of the most villainous character. Like in all her earlier appearances, you know, we were watching the show being like, Yuna, boo. Like she's so overpowering and focused on his career. And it's like, you're the most dangerous person in this story that is a person. But that wasn't true. That wasn't who she was, you know? I mean, she's still going to try and get those endorsement deals. Having a gay son, she immediately sees the dollar signs in her eyes like, okay, we can work with this. That's who
like
she is.
Every Instagram shop, they instantly saw the gay dollars and how to cash in on them. I will buy a Rosanov jersey. Look, I am part of the problem.
I'm going to wait for the season 2 jerseys.
Can't
no
wait.
spoilers here.
Yeah. There are other women, Elena, and
that's one of the taglines for the podcast. There are other women.
There are other women. Elena and Maria, thank you. The barflies.
Nadine Barber as Elena and Bianca Nugara as Maria, Kip's two girlfriends who are so supportive and also so sharp. Like they both have great like interceptions in this story. I mean the dude girl exchange is like that has done so much work to unpack gender norms in this century.
Heavy lifting. Let's be honest. We didn't come for the women. We came here for the men. And the boys, as they are incredible. Absolutely.
I mean,
out of nowhere talent. And both Connor Story and Hudson Williams, I think, are just going to go on to do incredible things in their career. But what a way to start. Like, I mean, Connor Story will deservedly be recognized as the enormous talent that he is. He delivers, I think, one of the best performances of the year. He conveys this turmoil, inner struggle of a closeted bisexual athlete so convincingly that you forget in real life he's not Russian, he's proudly queer, and he's an absolute sweetheart.
Yes. Yeah, it's been noted many times, but both these actors are playing against type in this show. And Connor Story is actually a sort of very effervescent personality playing this very tightly wound Slavic
aggro
top. And Hudson Williams is actually kind of a lunatic in real life. Like he's brilliantly funny and out there and not at all boring. He is like his is the less starry of the two performances because he is playing a contained, cautious, autistic man who is really struggling with his identity and with finding love, and who doesn't know he's autistic for one thing, you know, and has trouble accepting that he's gay. And the one thing he's comfortable with right from the get-go is that he's a bottom, honestly. Like, he's totally okay with
relatable.
that. If you know, it's the less spectacular of the two performances, but, like, you see Hudson Williams, and it's clear that he is putting in just as much work as Connor Story. And we'll talk about the bottoming more in the queer section, I suppose.
I guess so. I also want to sing the praises of Hudson Williams. In particular, the last half of this way too short first season. So much work goes into this performance of the guy who's learning about himself, who can barely contain his love. Any queer person who's had that moment of feeling represented, but also feels unable to express that safely will recognize the quiet battle that he fights on the couch beside his mom in episode 5 when they see the gay kiss on screen and all of a sudden like both his and Ilya's worlds are literally spinning around them. But I think Hudson has like just like these tiny facial expressions that speak absolute volumes. And as I went back and was watching clips because my Instagram is now exclusively Heated Rivalry, there's
And
just,
you're going to watch the clips.
and I'm going to watch the clips. There's just so many little little smiles that are suppressed and little joys that are suppressed and like revelations that are held in so tight for fear of other people seeing these revelations. It's amazing work. He is
Yeah.
so good. I have a friend who said the Hudson Williams character just isn't doing it for me. He's so stated and boring. I was like, that's the role. That's exactly why it's so
That's what he's
good.
playing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what he's playing. It's a person who doesn't know himself, trying to figure themselves out. He just God. I just
Yeah.
love him so much.
Let's talk about Kip and Scott as well, because
Hmm.
we do get one episode dedicated to these other leading boys. Kip was someone I was familiar with only from Instagram. And even then, I think maybe it was only when he was cast in this show that I started following him. But, you know, that body, that hairy chest, he's gorgeous. I love him.
Yeah.
I look forward to seeing him in more things. And he's already working on some CBS procedural show as a sheriff or something. So good for her. Francois Arnault, though, as Scott Hunter, that is a man who has been due his roses for a very long time. Like, he has been working pretty steadily, I would say, for the past 10, 15 years. He was in Schitt's Creek. He was in The Borgias. He's been in a bunch of other things that people would know him from, but not necessarily know his name from. What a handsome man.
Oh my
What a
God, he's so
presence
beautiful.
on this screen. Really does make that one episode sing. And then in the last, the closing scenes of episode 5, the camera on him soaked with sweat. The work he's doing with his eyes, with the tightness of his smile. I have watched that. I mean, we've all watched that scene over and over again because it's the only way we can dehydrate to rehydrate now. It's just how my body works. But yeah, I just think it's such an incredible performance in an episode which already has the most incredible performance of the year by any actor in anything. So sorry to Jonathan Bailey on this instance.
Oops.
Honourable mention for the boys. I do want to shout out Callan Potter, who plays Hayden Pike. Sounds like a Star Trek name. He's so pretty. His eyes are so big. I can see why his wife keeps getting pregnant, because I would be trying to. Lovely boy.
Very lovely. Very handsome.
But we have talked about Connor Story's talent, and I do also want, and he said, why are people always talking about my body and not my talent? Well, we've talked about his talent. I need to take a moment to talk about his body.
Yes.
Connor Story is one of the most beautiful people I have ever seen in my life. And the fact that he is so goofy and so talented as well seems unfair.
It's unfair.
But like those are the lips I will dream of. Those are the eyes that will see into my soul. He's Tilda Swinton levels of beautiful.
Yes,
and he's such a chameleon. Like, it's extraordinary. Like, he's both a gymnast and a clown. And I mean, he has done both those things in a genuine professional or student capacity. And it really comes through in how incredibly adaptable he is, how authentic he comes across in the role of Ilya. I think, yeah, he is a self-identified sissy in this, the year of our Lord Jonathan Bailey, and I think that he is striking hot just when the world is ready for someone like Connor Story. And I think that's wonderful alchemy.
Yeah, and he also goes to prove that we will always fall in love with someone who has a prominent beauty mark. That beauty mark will be forever in my dreams and something that I look for in future partners. But yeah, it really does feel unfair to see someone who has it all, like amazing talent, great, great dancer, and just that body, and which he obviously worked very hard for, and he's been very like cheeky about his routine online.
Yeah.
But this is someone who must spend a lot of time at the gym and eating the right thing. But he seems happy and he's living like a big, like out queer life. It's God, it just makes me so full of hope in a world that has seen hope clawed back. That someone like this can be given such a platform. It's really cool.
Yeah. And I don't know how he has time to do all of the PR and all of the photo shoots, but I hope, don't stop. Not on my account.
No, no. both of them have been doing interviews non-stop.
Yeah,
And I know that's part of like the press cycle of any project, but it feels like surely they didn't know that they were going to be in People and GQ and Vogue
right.
and
No,
Instinct and
yeah.
like and all of it. Like this all came out of nowhere. So the fact that they've done all of these photo shoots together and they still have time to talk to publications and they're on Instagram every day. It's like, wow, God, they must be so busy and tired.
And you think maybe now they're like getting to breathe out, but no, because the show hasn't launched in the UK yet. And you know, UK publicists are raptors. Like
Mhm.
they are the hardest working, exploitative
Diabolical.
people in the industry. They
Mhm.
will absolutely work those boys. We'll see at least one of them on Graham Norton, probably. I mean, we've got to.
Oh, absolutely.
I live for the Attitude cover shoot. You know, it's going to be phenomenal. So bring it all on.
Should we put our dreams aside and talk about the music?
I'm so used to putting my dreams aside, but there is
Yeah.
there is something to talk about here for sure. The music is there are so many great needle drops
Mhm.
and a lot of very contemporary music, but that evokes sort of French 60s pop influence, the sort of the yeah movement of French pop music that speaks to a different era of youthful romantic disillusionment. So it's just beautiful and perfect. And a lot of it is CanCon. So yeah, this is a show where the music is put together with as much care and craft as everything else and still so Canadian. So Canadian.
So Canadian. I mean, every other artist is Quebecois, and that is so cool. I had already been listening to a lot of Montreal pop this year,
Uh-huh.
and the reveal that Shane listens to French soft pop in the car on his own, it's like, God, where are the fucking cameras?
Yeah, and I think the music supervisor on the show is also a Montreal musician, Peter Peter. Yeah, that's the hallmarks are all there. You know, the work is being done. Any favorite needle drops for you?
Yeah, I mean, the Harrison cover of Tattoos, all the things she said, will go down as
Yeah,
the best needle drop in the show, maybe of the year across all television. It was just so well done in the darkest moment in their storyline. It had so much weight to it, and visually the scene was breathtaking. But yes, to hear that amazing song from the 90s come back into existence in such a fresh way was really cool. But I also want to shout out C'est Toi by Satine and L'Anarchie des Jours Heureux by La Bronze, which was the car ride to the cottage song. That's a
yes,
great track, and I've already added to my own Spotify playlist. And Mange 2 by Wet
Wet
Leg.
Leg. I'll believe in anything by Wolf Parade, which is in both the Kip episode and then, of course, the big kiss at the end of that
Yes, yes.
episode 5.
Great storytelling through song and repetition of
Yes.
song.
And we should mention Feist because I think
Yeah,
she's the only artist with 2 tracks on
right.
the soundtrack. Sea Lion in the first episode and My Moon, My Man in I think the second episode.
Hmm.
And My Moon, My Man has been playing nonstop in my head basically since that aired. So I also want to call out at the funeral, well, at the wake for Ilya's dad, there's a track playing called Rivalry by Mark Bernesh. It is a swan song about fallen soldiers sung by a dying man. Bernesh was dying of lung cancer when he recorded that song, and
Wow.
it's haunting and powerful and really brilliant. And you can see why they would play it like diegetically, why it would play at the wake of Ilya's father. But also, of course, this is a work of art here. It also speaks of the fallen soldiers of Queerness. You know, it speaks about all of the lost cranes that have gone before Ilya. And it's really a beautiful piece.
Yeah, I the soundtrack is fantastic. You can find some great playlists out there of all of the tracks and inspired tracks. Highly recommend. Absolutely love it.
Of our 5 pillars, several of them seem no-brainers. There's maybe only a couple where we might be quibbling when we come to the scoring. Who knows? This is one of them. How do we feel about the fashion in this show, Shane?
Look, it's hockey gear or nothing at all. And I'm here for the nothing at all.
Actually, the costume people, the wardrobe stylists on this show have been doing some great work because it is a show set 10 years ago. They are doing, millennial style fashions, tapered jeans and all of that stuff. And there are some great pieces, mostly on Ilya, who is not really a clothes horse, but is just a beautiful man with a lot of money. So he becomes a clothes horse by default. Like Ilya's vintage Gauthier shirt that he wears at the nightclub, do I like it? No, I do not. But do I appreciate it? Absolutely, I do. Like, it's perfect.
And his Hawaiian shirt in
Yes.
Florida, another great piece that is absolutely garish and hideous, but says everything you need to know about the character. And would I wear it? Yeah, I would.
Yeah.
It looks breezy and comfortable. I like how fashion also tells story in this, and it becomes a story point at one point where, I mean, Shane spends the first 3 episodes in hockey gear, in a tux, in a towel, and in a plain white tee. And then when he re-meets Ilya a few seasons later, Ilya like notices that he's dressed up and he admits that he has a stylist now. And I couldn't help but feel like he had less personality wearing the stylist clothes
Yes.
than when he was wearing what made him comfortable, which is such a reflection of the journey that he's on in the moment. It's really, again, really brilliantly forward thinking.
Yeah. And the stylist's clothes do not look good on him to modernize, really. Like, it just look more expensive.
Yeah.
And another great piece of, I think it has to be deliberate, that we get in the 6th episode, we see Shane Hollander at the barbecue wearing a plaid shirt. And then later we see the same plaid shirt on Ilya when they're lying on the couch together, intertwining their toes. And the fact that it's a plaid shirt, the iconic item from Brokeback Mountain, that's got to be a deliberate choice.
Yeah,
to show
absolutely.
these two men sharing their wardrobe, which makes sense because Ilya brought like a tiny bag. What was he thinking? He was thinking, I'll be naked. Yeah, I really loved that touch with the plaid shirt.
Yeah, me too. I mean, in terms of style, there's some nice watches. Shane's cottage is incredibly
Gorgeous.
Ontario core in style and gorgeous. But I love that he's like, it's private, and you can see the neighbor's dock in the foreshot. Like that's Ontario private. It's like the next person is only 500 meters away. And it's also got a well, and the water is actually really good. That is what every person in Canada who has a cottage says.
Yeah.
The only other person that I think is worth mentioning for me is Svetlana, who is
Yes.
impeccably styled, gets to wear gowns, has incredibly layered hair and texture and jewels. And yeah, she always just looks really fantastic.
There's one anachronistic piece that shows that the show can be cutting edge. Elena, when she's at the game, at one point is wearing what's called a sitting suit, this giant puffy jacket that is actually so now and new that it's like probably the next thing rather than the now thing. And it's like, they did not exist 10 years ago, but it's very fashionable. And yeah, there is that part of me that has been looking at the Sitting Suits website being like, which one would I get if I were going to get one? Because they're not that expensive.
Yeah. See you next episode, pal. Yeah.
Another thing that's too warm for me to wear on a podcast recording. Also, Ilya's low-slung drop crotch pants in the scene at Ilya's house. Apparently those are Rick Owens. I don't know my designers well enough to know how expensive that must be, but very is the vibe I'm getting. And I just think that is a beautiful use of wearing very little, to have those just sitting so low on his hips. My God.
God, how do they sit up there? Oh, right, that shelf.
Yeah. Oh, and Ilya's gold cross, the Russian cross accessory of the year.
Yes, of course. Who isn't wearing a cross these days? We've come to the point in the show that we're either going to continue for another hour, or we can just sum up everything that we've already said. But the queerness. Andrew, was the queerness in this for you?
You only understand the power of a thing that you never had when you finally get a taste of it. That's what has stuck with me about this show. Watching the 6th episode and then watching it again later on the same day and watching bits of it again this morning, like I was struck with a sort of a sense of mourning that it's over. Like, I'm a bit shaken up that this thing that has been so unexpected goes away. But now we live in a world where it exists and where this story is incredibly popular. And we're going to see more stories like this, and we're going to see more opportunities for these performers. And we're going to see more of this story because it's been renewed for a second season. I think a third season is inevitable. And it's queer. It's so unapologetically and joyously queer. There's never been anything like it. And I hope I won't be saying that there never will be anything. There's got to be now 100, 1,000 stories like it, because it's a happy ending, Shane.
Yeah.
Like, I know the story is not over, but we got a happy ending to this story. Like, I know Katya Zamolodchikova was saying on one of her podcasts, she's enjoying the show, but if there's some great tragedy in the 6th episode, she's going to like burn it all down. I knew there wouldn't
I felt
be.
the same way.
Yeah, I knew there wouldn't be a great tragedy. I know, I know the story from the books, but also I know the genre from having read so many of these books. These stories are not about the tragic twist. They're never about, and then they break up, one of them dies, etc., etc. They're romance stories, and they are meant to have a happy ending or a happy for now ending, which leaves things a little ambiguous, but the sense is they're going to go on to be together for as long as the fates allow. And so I knew that this show was not going to end us in a tortured place. No, watching my friends watch this show, because I did watch every episode of this show with members of my queer family in the room with me, by choice and by design. Like, I engineered that situation to make sure that my friends were around me to watch this show. It was so lovely to see their responses, to see them react to parts of the story that I knew were coming, and to hear just like the little utterances that would come from them, the little oh, and the little oh, little sighs and appreciations. I've never known anything like it. I've never had that gift before of being able to share something like this, and I get to see it and I get to revel in it. And that is nothing but gratitude to this team, these actors, these writers, these performers. This is magic. This is queer magic. More, please. More. I'm like Ilya's family now. Just more. Give me more.
Yeah, this was a revelation. It was only happy endings. It was only yearning, but in a wonderful, expectant way.
Mm-hmm.
And it just made me feel like, and I'm gonna get emotional now, but we deserve love and happiness and representation and families who love us unconditionally and chosen families who make our lives richer. And just thinking about the last 2 episodes is emotional because I don't think we've ever really had anything like this. And it gives
No.
me hope that we will have more like this. It just gives me hope. It's a show that is built on the hope that we can find all of these things. And it's not always true, right? In real life, it's a bit messier. So it's nice to have a fantasy to like build that hope within ourselves, or at least be okay with the things that we do have. I I want to get sick of the trope of gays getting a happy ending. I long for the day where some cranky, petulant, petty, old, gay, probably white man says, I remember when all of our stories ended in heartbreak, destruction, and death.
Yeah.
Because that is not what we have here. What we have is a story that ends in love and tenderness and understanding and possibility. And that is just so cool. It's so refreshing. It is so needed in what has been like a dark decade.
Yeah, a happy ending becomes subversive when it's queer characters. We were supposed to hide from the world, and if we didn't, we were supposed to be pushed down and beaten and killed. And we were supposed to then die anyway, unloved and lonely. And this is the show that says, no, we don't. It doesn't have to be Brokeback Mountain. It doesn't have to be Fellow Travelers, even. You can just, there is a way to be happy through love. And yeah, this is a critical time in our culture to have this depiction of masculinity on our screens. And you can see why women love it, but also like the straight hockey bros that are watching this show and loving it. What a wonderful moment. What a, thank you to the straight men. You won't hear me say that very often. Thank you for the straight men who have given this show a chance and fallen in love with the show and are cheering for these boys to get together and to get down together, because they also see how good masculinity can be rewarding in this culture where toxic masculinity, which is just one flavor of masculinity, but for some reason it's the one that everyone orders when they were going to the ice cream shop of masculinity. It doesn't have to be that way. Men can be tender and loving and can create space for other people to thrive. My God, what a revolution.
Yeah, yeah. Oh God, I just I can't wait for more. I cannot wait for the second season. 2027 is so far away and
So
yet
far.
so close. I'm trying to reframe it with that hope in mind that I will be alive in 2027 to see this.
Yes. Yeah. I did mention bottoming. I said I'd come back to it in the queer part
Mhm,
of the podcast. No bottom shaming in this show, which is lovely. That also
mhm.
feels revolutionary. And I know that there were certain quarters that were complaining about the sex. The sex is not unrealistic. It's sex in a romance setting. It's beautiful and it's idealized, and we don't have to watch them fussing over lube. But this is some of the best sex I've seen on screen and some of the best kissing. I mean, the kissing in this show is Oscar worthy. It's so it looks peak. It looks beautiful and ideal, and it creates the yearning in you that they have in themselves, where it's like, I just want to be held and kissed like that. That's all I want.
Right? God, to be Shane Hollander. Um, I I don't even want to mention the name of the person who said that the sex is unbelievable because
Yeah,
that was such a petty, rotten post. And it's like, why are you trying to tear this down for people who really need to see this right now? But there's always going to be that person in the room who just has to be contrarian. And I'm not saying you have to love this show. Maybe it isn't for everyone, but do you have to shit on it when people really desperately like it?
Shane, is it time to move into the scoring?
I think it's time.
So we're going to rate this show using our usual two-sided scorecard. On the one hand, we score the show itself out of 5. Terrible things can get 0 points. Wonderful things get 5 points. We then have our bonuses, where we award the show for its depiction of women, for the quality of the boys, for the music, the fashion, and the actual on-screen queerness. We can also apply a penalty if anything seems egregiously bad. Shane, kick things off. What are you giving this show out of 5?
It's a one.
End call. End call.
It's a five. It's wholeheartedly a five.
Yeah, I think it's so beautifully put together and with so much care, and I think it's the way it's shot, the way it's written, the way it's acted. It's a 5. Yeah, 100%. The women.
I don't want to take a point away from this show because of the women. The women are not the focal point of the story,
Yeah.
and they don't have much to do other than support the main characters. And like you said,
Yes.
this isn't a show about women, and that's okay. Do I give it the point? Like, women were multidimensional. I like that about them.
That's it. I really like the women in this show. I think the show could have squandered that. It could have not given us that, but actually it gave us a healthy mother-son relationship. It gave us a healthy breakup scene. And it gave us Svetlana, who is an absolute goddess. And by the way,
Okay,
Svetlana
fine.
is
I'll give it the point. I'll give it the point.
she's a white blonde girl in the books. So that was a brilliant casting change to that character.
Great casting choice. She's so great. Yeah, okay, fine. I'll give it the point.
All right. We're giving the women the point. Boys, is Connor's story hot enough? Is Hudson Williams gorgeous enough? I think it gets the point.
Let me think about this for 5 minutes. I'm just going to go grab some tissue and lotion. Yeah, absolutely. They get the point.
The sheer number of Connor story photo shoots I have now saved to my hard drive is grotesque. Music, it's a great all the way through. I have to give it the music point.
Yep, agreed. So many great needle drops, so many things that I've already added to my personal playlists.
All right, tell me about the fashion, Shane.
This is tough, Andrew, because this should be perfect. This should be an absolutely perfect show, but it is decidedly unfashionable because that's not who these characters are. And I'm okay with that. And so if this is what keeps it from being perfect, I'm so, so sorry. I'm not going to give it the point.
Wow. I'm going to say I understand, but in recognition of the wardrobe department doing sterling work, and it is, if not fashionable, glamorous, because it's a world of millionaires and their big houses and their beautiful tuxedos. It is a world I want to live in. So I'm giving it my fashion point in recognition of great work done.
I
And then
appreciate that.
the queerness is the last thing on the list. I'm going to say it's going to get the point from me. Shane, any quibbling there?
It could be a little more queer, but I guess I'll give
Yeah.
it the point.
Season 2, Jacob Tierney, more queerness, please.
Yeah, give us that hot toi, you know?
I feel we got close. And I cannot
I've
give
been edging
this.
this whole time.
I cannot apply a penalty in this instance, so it's getting a 10 out of me. Shane?
Yeah, I'm not going to put anything in the penalty box. So I am also
Oh, you
happy
did
with my
it.
score. Did it? We got one more in there.
So that is a 9.5 out of 10. Yeah, fair enough. A masterpiece.
Yeah, it really is. Fair enough. And I feel the subtle shade at me withholding that fashion point.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be subtle.
Am I wrong? Please tell me in the comments how wrong I am.
Yes.
We'll come back here and I'll change my score if we get enough people telling me how wrong I am. I am pliable. I have no moral.
So pliable. Yeah, come into the comments and tell us what your favorite bit of fashion was in this show. It
But
can
only
be
that.
just Hudson Williams in his tidy whities in the photo shoot. I mean, that alone. Come on, man.
God, this was amazing. Thank you again for telling me to get on this show. I will ride it the way that Elia rides Shane to my dying day.
Like, I've watched every episode at least twice, and I'm keen to sit down and watch it again. And I feel like I can't name another show that is true of. Truly, this is something else. And I'm so grateful that we got to cover it on the podcast.
Yes, and thank you for making these videos a hit for us. We hope that this one is too for you.
Yes, thank you all so much for watching our heated rivalry coverage. And you can be sure that we'll be doing more of it because
Oh, yeah.
we're on board. Thank you so much for watching. And until next time, kiss, kiss.
Bang, bang.
If you enjoyed this video, please click the like button and subscribe to this channel. You can follow Kiss Kiss Bang Bang on Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, and Letterboxd at KKBB Pod, or email us at kisskissbangbangpod@gmail.com.
Kiss Kiss Bang Bang is recorded in Toronto on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabeg, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples.